What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. The WNBA Draft is live on ESPN right now. Craig Hoffman, Anthony Haynie here with you on YouTube at the Team 980 and Hoffman W Sports, which is my home for all of my women's sports coverage. So if you want a lot more on the draft, make sure you're subscribed there. Of course, the Hoffman Show, radio show. We spent all 3 hours with Christy Winters-Scott. She's much taller than you sitting in that chair, Anthony. Earlier today, sorry about that. So we had 3 hours with Christy earlier. Great breakdown on a lot of the prospects. So if things go how we think they are tonight, definitely worth checking that out on the Rewind at Team 980, and we'll cut up some of that analysis and put it on demand as well. So this is the way we're doing this. This is basically like a second screen experience, Anthony. So we assume that if you're watching us, you're also got maybe the draft on in the background, or maybe we're on one screen, draft on another. That's how that's going to go. And so we are not going to carry any of the picks live, but as soon as they happen, we'll tell you. So if you want to also just use us as your first screen, you're not going to see anybody walk across the stage. You're not going to see Kathy, Commissioner Engelbart do anything, but you will see us talking. And eventually, we're gonna put a magic cape over Anthony, and then he's going to disappear. Actually, he's just going to stand up. He's going to go. And then Meghan McPeak, the Mystics play-by-play voice, is going to sit down around 8 o'clock. So that'll be about probably when the Mystics picks are wrapping up, Anthony. You got 3, 4, and 5 for the Mystics. Dallas is on the clock right now. So if you see us peeking out over this way, that is where the draft is on for our screen. So we're obviously keeping an eye on that. And it's pretty funny right now. They're showing tweets from Arike Gumbawale, who fell to her knees thanking the Lord when the Dallas Wings won the draft lottery, and then was apparently rooting for UConn against her Notre Dame roots. But it looks like the Wings, the pick is in. I wonder who it could be. Dallas Wings select. This graphic's been loaded for a long time. Let it rip. Yeah, Paige Bueckers, guard out of UConn. So very exciting for Paige, obviously. Number 1 pick, very expected. Could have been the number 2 pick behind Caitlin Clark in last year's draft. She's given hugs to Gino Auriemma, her teammate AZ Fudd, I believe her parents. And so I think this is, frankly, Anthony, from the Washington side of it, this is a bummer. This is a bummer. There was a lot of news and rumors throughout the entire college basketball season that Bueckers did not want to play for Dallas. And I will say there's some odd looks right now at that table. But I think it's also just like happiness and kind of stoicism for Paige. But she is number 1 at Dallas. Now we get to see if she's actually going to sign there and play there, whether she forces a trade of some kind. I would think that if that was going to happen, that was going to happen before tonight. But it looks like Paige Bueckers to Dallas is on, and the pipe dream is over.
Yeah, selfishly, viewing this whole situation, I'm a Mystics fan. We cover the Mystics here in D.C. Obviously, we wanted Paige here in D.C., but things didn't fall, in our hands. So we're stuck with the reality, and the reality is we still have picks 3, picks 4, and also pick 6. And again, as you and Christy were touching on earlier, this is a chance for us to, build that team up. So, even if these aren't, our best players for, the future, there still can be, valuable role players and, young players that, we groom and develop into players in order to, build us up into a contender. We see it happening with the Wizards right now with the young core players that they have over there. And now here in Washington, with 3, 4, and 6, I think we can really take this draft and allow ourselves to, build something for years to come.
For sure. And it's just, it's just a bummer that, you get your hopes up and you think you're going to get a generational prospect potentially like Bueckers. Washington, to their credit, they did everything right to secure the war chest of assets it would have taken to make it worth Dallas's while if they ultimately wanted to. And I'm sure there'll be stories written about what happened and all of that. I think in part, you also have to give the staff that it's in Dallas credit. One, Letitia Trammell was the coach there for a long time, and she got fired. And that's not an easy decision to fire someone who's as respected as her in the sport. But I think it was pretty clear, the current status quo in Dallas wasn't going to be good enough. And that, again, Bueckers had more leverage than any player has ever had in any sport in the history of sports. And that includes guys like John Elway, who ultimately was like, I'm going to go play baseball, and wound up actually not playing for, at the time, I believe it was the Baltimore Colts who drafted him. But they, he just went and played baseball. But if he was going to play football, you still, not in control so much of his situation. It turns out that Denver gets the draft pick a year or two later, whenever it was, and they take him, and he's fine with that. And obviously that worked out quite well for both sides. But for Bueckers on the money side, like, the WNBA is the smallest check she's getting. And so if she just decided to go somewhere else, then fine. Like, she could have done that, and she could have forced her way. And who knows, maybe in a couple of years she still does that. But I think that it is it's worth saying, like, Dallas hiring Kurt Miller as their general manager, someone who was fired kind of unexpectedly as the coach of the LA Sparks, and was available and has deep roots in Connecticut, where he was the longtime coach of the Sun and very successful. Like, clearly they did enough to, I guess, assuage, to use that word again, assuage, my SAT word of the day, her concerns. And it looks like Paige Bueckers is, unless she just said something at an interview that is a game changer, Paige Bueckers is off to Dallas. Lots of high fives in the Wings war room. Yeah, I bet so. Congrats, you just got Paige Bueckers.
Yeah.
Also, congrats to Dallas for not taking 8 years to make the pick.
That too, because usually, teams get 3 to 5 minutes to make their draft pick, and they want to use the entire 5 minutes. I'm not sure if that's because of the team or it's more so because of the network. That's like, all right, take your time. We're eventually going to get the pick out. But, yeah, good to see that they didn't take forever to get that pick. But it's going to be interesting to see what actually does end up happening now that Paige is in Dallas. I think you pair her up with Enrique. Like, you have some really good playmakers out there in Dallas, and I think that's also just what's so exciting about the WNBA. There's so much talent here in the WNBA. So to see that on full display, pairing her up with Enrique, I think is going to be phenomenal. And they have other role players as well that can definitely get the job done as well.
And that's a fan base that has supported that team pretty well throughout the year. So, good for them. Going to be a lot of fun to watch. Her and that's a team that also plays in, like, one of these smaller, like, bandbox, 5,000, 7,000 seat arenas. And, I would love to see a few more games perhaps at the American Airlines Center down there in Dallas. I just saw an old colleague of mine, Mike Peasley, who works down in Dallas. Caitlin Clark, Paige Bueckers square off twice this year in Dallas, June 27th and August 1st. My guess is those are going to be played in the big arena.
Probably easier. That's the thing. Like, even when Caitlin came here, Angel came here, it was easy to sell out Capital One. So
yeah.
I think we're going to see more and more of that as, more and more younger stars, the Caitlins of the world, the Paiges, the Jujus, as they matriculate into the league. We're going to see some of these WNBA games more and more in these packed-out sold arenas.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, we are at Capital One Arena. The court's just out, although I almost want to, like, send you on a mission. Also, like, my phone is my camera right now. I'm like, can we wireless this? Just run out there, see what's. I'm guessing it's quickly turning into ice as there's no more basketball to be played here at Capital One Arena. But we are literally just around the corner from the court where the WNBA did set their attendance record last year when Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever came to town. Of course, we also got to see firsthand some of the construction that's already started.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it was just like they're cleaning out all the stuff from the Wizards this season and the TVs that they put in the suites and all that kind of stuff. So some of it's just like pure cleanup for the end of the season as the Wizards did their exit interviews today and all that kind of stuff. But they've already started some of the construction that's going to happen at Capital One Arena here this summer. And so some of that is going to wind up, or the games that they would typically move out of ESA, going to be at George Mason. I think there's one in Baltimore. So it's going to be pretty fun to see. The pick is in for the Seattle Storm. We are expecting it to be Dominique Malonga, the Frenchwoman, 19 years old, just insane talent. It's interesting. I don't want to make the Wemby comparison because she explicitly said, I was reading an article earlier today from The Athletic, that she doesn't love that. Not because she doesn't respect Wemby or like see it as a huge compliment. She's just like, I want to be my own person. I want to be Dominique. But she is someone with outrageous size, 6'6", a 7-foot wingspan. And she has all of the facets that make a guy like Wembanyama so unique. She's got handles. She can shoot threes. She'll drop a dunk on you. Like, she's got inside-outside game. And it's just, again, like, This is about to be a really exciting night for the Mystics. But let's get the bummers out of the way. Dang, was hoping that Paige thing would come through.
Yeah.
Dang, if Olivia Miles is in this draft, you're getting either Olivia Miles, who might be the number 1 pick next year, or Dominique Malonga. Now, look, Kiki Iriafen, Sonia Citron, outstanding players. Very excited about those as the projected picks. But we'll see what they ultimately do. But this we're very much expecting to be Dominique Malonga for the Seattle Storm, who had a good year last year. They had my good friend Alicia Clark in the offseason. At least AC is going back home. They also, have year 2 with NECA and Skylar and pretty interesting group of players there. Gabby Williams back for the full year after she missed part of the season last year because she wanted to be able to play for France in the Olympics. But yeah, man, it's going to be a very, very interesting year in Seattle, and I think low-key they're a contender in the West.
Yeah, and if Dominique Malonga is, paired with a Skylar Diggins, she has some veterans out there that she can definitely learn from. You have NECA, you have Skylar, like that.
AC is the ultimate vet.
And then Alicia Clark as well. So
I know I'm biased, but damn, how? I mean, I'll say it quietly because Alicia, I hope you're not watching. She's the oldest player in the league. she's been.
I'm
around.
gonna make sure she hears this, Greg.
No, don't do that. Don't do that to me. She's got more experience than any other player in the WNBA. How about that? How you like them apples?
I think it's also similar to if they end up, taking Dominique, it will be similar to what the Spurs did with Wemby in terms of bringing a Chris Paul around her to mentor him and having some of these other veterans that can, pour into him and ultimately, make him a better player. But I think Tony Parker, he's actually the one that started calling her the female Wemby. So
yeah. She played for Tony Parker's team that she owns or that he owns. Over in France. So that's where she's been playing pro ball for a couple years, and so it's kind of this weird thing where she's 19 and playing in the WNBA at 19 is hard. And it's something that American players can't even do. You got to be 22 in the season that you're drafted, or in the year of the season that you were drafted, in order to be a domestic player that is allowed to enter the WNBA, but those rules don't apply to internationals. And so she is going to be able to she's going to be able to come right in at 19, but she's been playing pro ball for a couple of years now. And so I have no idea how good she'll be immediately. Someone with her skill set feels like she'll be able to adapt okay. And, again, surrounded with great players. And it's not even like she's got to be their sole big. Like, NECA's fantastic. And so this is the pick that Seattle acquired in the Jewel Lloyd trade. Kelsey Plum, of course, goes to L.A. This pick goes to Seattle. Jewel Lloyd goes from Seattle to Vegas. And so that is how they get this pick. But it's going to be, they also got Katie Lou Samuelson in this offseason, Lexi Brown. Like, they're good. They're deep. Do they have the firepower? Unless Skylar and NECA play at an all-world level. It doesn't feel like they're quite up there with, like, Las Vegas and Asia, but we'll see. All right, the pick is in for Seattle. Also, why don't they have a clock on this? There's literally no clock.
It shouldn't be, right?
We need a clock, and then the Mystics will be on the clock, speaking of the clock. The Seattle Storm have selected Dominique Malonga, 6'6", out of France. You know that meme?
France?
Yeah.
I think you texted. Somebody texted me France, and I didn't get it all the way.
So Miss World, one of those a couple years ago. They're like, they go around, they all say their country, and the girl from France just goes, France! And now my good friend and co-host on the Woso show, Andre Carlisle, anytime there's anything with France, he always just posts that, and I cry laughing every single time. So Dominique Malonga from
France
is the second overall pick in the 2025 WNBA Draft, which means, Anthony Haynie, the Washington Mystics are on the clock.
We are on the clock, man. We are.
He went full we, everybody.
Yes.
And not the French kind.
Yes, we're on the clock. And, again, we have, our pick of the litter being at 3. The two people we probably would have wanted, Paige, Dominique, are off the board clearly. But there's still some good players here in the draft. You have Kiki. You have the Sonia Citrons of the world. You also have Tahina Powell, who has been mocked, what was it, as high as 4?
I've seen her, I think the The Next, which is a fantastic publication. We've had both Jen Hatfield, who's walking around somewhere over there, and Howard Megdal on the WNBA show before here at Hoffman W Sports. Like, we've had both of them on. They do a fantastic job. They had Tina Pow fourth. I also seen her mocked as low as 16, I think.
Okay.
So, like, I'm not expecting Tina Pow to be. And I don't know whether that was a mock or whether that was their player list, like their rankings. But, like, either way, if you think that she's that good, and they talk to people in the league, like, it ain't not like they're just doing their own
Making
bit.
it up, yeah.
Also, by the way, fantastic Holly Rowe, who's probably 5'3", maybe, and Malonga here interview. Someone get Holly a box. That's not nice to Holly. But I'm definitely curious to see. I think the 6th pick is more of a wild card. It feels like Citron and Iriafen are the
3,
picks
4.
here.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the thing about, like, this Mystics front office. We know nothing.
Yep.
Nothing about how they think. Jamila Weideman has never been a GM before. Sydney Johnson has never been a head coach. Michael Winger has not had as much experience with the WNBA. Last year, he basically let Mike Thibault do what he wanted. Eric Thibault do what they wanted. So this is, even in the Winger era, this is in some ways their first draft. We have no idea what direction they're going to go.
We don't, but again, like, I think when you think about the Mystics and where we are, would you say the Mystics are sort of kind of rebuild mode, or
That's the thing.
not fully there yet?
Like, in the WNBA, what does that mean? Right? Like, the turn is so much faster than it is in the NBA, for instance.
Yeah.
But yes, to the extent that a team, like, if you had to say, hey, which teams are not going to make the playoffs this year, there's a chance the Mystics could, for sure. But I would probably bet on them to not be in that mix.
Yeah.
But I think, like, this is where I'm also curious to see what else happens tonight in terms of trades. Is there player movement? All that kind of stuff. Because the Mystics last year, I'm trying to remember the stat. I think for most of the year, they were in the positive when Brittany Sykes was on the floor.
Yes.
Like, they're plus-minus, right?
Yep.
And that's one player, but, like, it shows you how important she was. And same thing for Shakira Austin. And those two on the court together, they were actually pretty good. And, like, late in the season, they found a couple of things, a couple of players who were like, oh, okay, that's a hidden gem. That worked. They were trying to tank for better lottery odds, and they were playing, their, like, last players they signed to replacement contracts, and credit to Eric Thibault. I know he ultimately got axed after the year, but, like, he did a good enough job that was like, dang, dude, quit winning these games. They were playing hard. They were playing well. And so, if Stephanie Dolson and Brittany Sykes and Shakira Austin and Aaliyah Edwards and one of these other players is healthy, then I think the Mystics, it's a 13-team league and 8 teams make the playoffs. Like, they could do it. So at that point, are you in a rebuild? But also, they could play a bunch of their young players, put the ball in other players' hands, and, try to be at the bottom of the league and have the best chances at the lottery odds in the 2-year rolling, record the way it works. Like, I could see this going either way.
Yeah, for sure. But I think when we look at what we have currently on the roster, I think we have a lot of bigs up front. You have the Shakira. We drafted Aaliyah Edwards last year, and you're talking about possibly Kiki Iriafen being available at 3. Like, how would she mesh with, what we already have here in Washington? And then you also have Sonia Citron, who's also a wing player as well. I think the Tahina Pow mock, I don't think it's too far. Maybe for 3 and 4, but for 6,
I'm fine with it at 6.
I think at 6 it will be understandable just because we need the shooting. We need to be able to score, put the ball in the basket.
For sure. And Shatori Walker-Kimbrough leaves in the offseason, of course, the big one, how they have this pick. This is this 3rd pick, which is about to be announced. This was originally the Chicago Sky's pick, and the Mystics are on the clock now after the Ariel Atkins trade. They also have Chicago's first-rounder next year. But with the 3rd pick in the 2025 WNBA Draft, the Washington Mystics select Sonia Citron, guard, Notre Dame. I love it. Now, this is where things get interesting. To me, I don't care the order of Citron, Iriafen.
Mm-hmm.
Citron was the bigger no-brainer for me. They don't have guards right now. On ESPN, they just put up a graphic that said the Washington Mystics. And by the way, this is a purely YouTube show. We're not simulcasting. This isn't we're Team 980. We're more than a radio station. Let us know in the comments what you think of this pick for the Mystics. Sonia Citron goes 3rd overall. And by the way, that means we'll be talking to her in about 2-3 weeks at Media Day. Also, we'll talk to her in 2 days. There's a press avail on Wednesday, and we'll be talking to Sonia then. But they just put up a graphic on ESPN that said Mystics projected starting lineup. You know what it said?
We didn't have any guards.
Yeah. There was Stephanie Dolson, Shakira Austin. It was Aaliyah Edwards, Shakira Austin, Brittany Sykes, and 2 grayed out silhouettes saying TBD guard, TBD guard. Well, now you got one. It's Sonia Citron.
Yeah, and I was curious because again, the Mystics we allowed some of our guards to walk, so we didn't necessarily have that on our roster. So going with Sonia Citron first, I think was a great acquisition. Again, like she can learn from people like Brittany Sykes, especially when we talk about what kind of defender she can be, her upside as a defender. We know she can put the ball in the basket. We know she can also slash and shoot the ball from the perimeter as well. So I think what we're getting right now, best guard in the draft, in my opinion, and she also is a two-way player. So I think you're going to need that if you want to have some success.
Yeah, for sure. She is someone who can do absolutely everything on the floor. She can shoot. She can handle. She can, defend her face off. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the country who did a better job against Juju Watkins this year than Sonia Citron. And now that is who the Washington Mystics are going to have to, essentially replace Ariel Atkins. That's the thing is like, A was an A1, no pun intended, defender. This is one of the best in the league, a defensive player of the year type player, all WNBA defensive team type player. And now she gets traded to Chicago, and they got to figure out how to keep up that defensive presence on the perimeter. And ultimately now Sonia Citron's going to get a lot of those assignments. It's going to be really tough for her as a rookie. I hope that Brittany Sykes, obviously, should be said. B. Sykes is as good as it gets, maybe even better. She is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate as well. So she'll have a guy, but long term, that Sonia Citron is going to be the go-to defender here, the person who guards the other team's best player. And she's got the size, too. She's 6'2". She's got the size to guard some bigs, guard on the perimeter, guards. So I'm excited to see what she can do. But Sonia Citron is the pick. What do y'all think? Let us know in the comments. Of course, we're streaming live in 2 places right now, at the Team 980 and at Hoffman W Sports. But we can see the comments on both at once. So let us know what you think. And what you think the Wizards should do, the Mystics should do now. Pick number 4. Probably Kiki Iriafen.
Uh-oh. Back-to-back. We didn't have to wait too long either.
No. I guess they didn't have to wait to see what was going to happen at 3. They knew.
True.
Which is helpful. With the 4th pick in the 2025 WNBA Draft, after taking Sonia Citron 3rd, the Washington Mystics do take Kiki Iriafen 4th. By the way, best dress of the night, Kiki Iriafen. Custom-made golden dress from a Nigerian designer. Of course, Kiki of Nigerian heritage. All of the jewelry that she's wearing is also made by a Nigerian jeweler and designer. So repping her heritage as she is drafted 4th overall in the WNBA Draft. And now we get to see how the Iriafen, Austin, Edwards front court is going to look. It's a lot of size. It's a lot of versatility. And the thing I love about this for Kiki is, I almost feel like can play a small forward role. Or maybe Aaliyah plays that small forward role. But Aaliyah at 6'4" and Kira at 6'5", they can take care of the defensive stuff. And Iriafen, to the extent that you can hide in the WNBA defensively, I think she's going to wind up being able to hide a little bit as she finds her feet on that end of the floor. Yeah,
I definitely think being able to play alongside some bigs that have been in the league a couple of years definitely will help her matriculate to the league. My big thing for her is just going to be keep having that same dog and that same energy that she played with when she was at Stanford and also when she was at USC. She's ferocious on the boards, and she has the face-up game. And I'm thinking like with those three bigs, the Aaliyah Edwards,
Shakira Austin.
Shakira, and then Kiki. I think we're going to have to play through the bigs. Granted, that's like an old, 1990s, early 2000s, brand of play. But at the same token, you got to play to your personnel. And I think that's what we'll have to do as long as, we don't necessarily have the playmakers on the outside. Because we have Brittany, we have Jade, and then we have Sonia at the guard position. But they're going to need some help. So
Yeah, for sure. Grab my little quick sheet over here. See if there's anything interesting on there, Anthony. Professional production. The thing is about all three of them, though, they can all play on the perimeter. Aaliyah, I think, better than the other two with where she's at right now because I think her three-point shot is probably the best. But Kiki can shoot it a little bit from three. And Shakira, I don't want her taking a ton of threes.
Yeah.
But she can shoot it a little bit, but she can drive it. Like, you get her the ball on the perimeter, it's not like you can just play off of her because you give her a running head start and 2 free dribbles to get ahead of steam. Like, you're toast. And so while she needs to continue to improve her playmaking and all that kind of stuff, which is always going to be, I think, something she can work on. She's not a point guard. She's big. And I would like to see Kira more in the post. I think the versatility to say, like, okay, at the very least, we can space the floor with those three on the floor at the same time. I think that is an interesting thing. I also think there's just there's a drop off with all due respect to the players that are about to go here. I think there's a drop off in talent after those 4 players. I think that we talked about this with Christy, and I think most analysts agree. I think there's a chance Anissa Amoore could wind up being really, really good. But, her numbers are insane. Her production's been fantastic at LSU and at DePaul and the whole thing. But at some point, you just have to be like, we're collecting talent. And knowing how much change is going to happen in the league over the next 2 years, just get the talent in the building. And if you make another trade, you do whatever, that's fine.
So you're going with, if Anissa's at 6, you'll be willing to add another big.
That I probably wouldn't do. That's probably
I thought that's what you were getting at.
No.
Like, huh?
I'm saying with Iriafen, even if you're going, I don't know if it's a perfect fit with Austin and Edwards, the chances that all 3 of them are on the team, even this time next year, doesn't feel huge. Yeah. It's certainly not 100%. That they're all on the team in 3 years feels like 5%. Yeah. And if I had to guess, it's probably Iriafen and Aaliyah, and we'll see what happens with Shakira. But I wonder. And again, I don't say that I love Shakira. I love talking to her. Wonderful person. Really, really enjoy it. Always greeted with a big warm smile. Kira, I want nothing but success for her the rest of her career, nevertheless the rest of her life. But practically, when you look at this with a cold hard analysis of how sports work, she was not drafted by this group.
Yeah.
To the extent Aaliyah was at least drafted by Michael Winger. But we know that she was a Mike Thibault pick. But she was also Michael Winger there. I think she is the centerpiece of what they want, what she showed at Unrivaled. Who she is everything that Michael Winger likes in a basketball player, and thus what Jamila likes in a basketball player. So I see that. I think Shakira is a lot of that stuff too, but I think stylistically she fits more with the Thibault style than what they're going to want to do here. More pace, space, all that kind of stuff. And so that's where I think that, Shakira is the most likely of the 3 to get dealt eventually. But how quickly that happens, to whom, for what, especially when you are what do they want? More first-round picks? They got another one coming up in a second.
Yep.
Obviously, Golden State on the clock for their first ever pick coming up at 5. And by the way, what an international roster. They've got 9 internationally born players. It's the most in WNBA, and we could definitely see an international player come off the board here. But you then look at Washington. They've got 3 first-round picks now next year. They have Chicago's pick, they have their own pick, and they have the Minnesota Lynx pick they got today in exchange for Carly Samuelson. So I don't. If you're trading Shakira Austin, I would hope that you're getting a player back, or if there was ever going to be the big Paige deal, you would have thought that maybe she would be a part of that.
Yeah, so based off what we have right now, so we have Kiki, we have Sonia. I think And again, the draft shouldn't be. Well, we talk about this when we talk about the NFL draft. Talk about best player available or
need, right?
or need. But we clearly see what we need are like more guards. But if there's a big that's out there that's still available, are you more so leaning towards the need, or are you more so just going to go with the best player available to make it a little bit more interesting at 6?
Yeah, I definitely think you probably go best player available. But I think the question is, like, who do you consider best player available? And we're now at a point in the draft where I think there's a lot more variety in this. All right, next up is Golden State's got Juste Joist, the 6-foot guard out of Lithuania. So we will have more thoughts on that, and then the Mystics' next pick in a second. We're just going to pop headsets off for a second and take a quick break here about half an hour into our draft coverage. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Meghan McPeak's going to join us here in just a few minutes. Of course, play-by-play voice of the Mystics here on the Team 980, literally on the Team 980. We'll have the Mystics games back on our air this year, simulcast from the Monumental Sports Network. So, Juste Joist, that is my best Lithuanian here, Anthony.
I think it was pretty good.
Thanks. 6-foot Lithuanian guard. She has been playing pro ball since she's 14 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
Youngest ever EuroLeague player. Now 14. At 19, she's getting drafted. I mean, she born in Washington, D.C. How about that? And then raised in Lithuania. So that is a fun fact. And just keep watching the broadcast. People are watching us on a second screen like, oh, cool, he can read. I think I have a ton of respect for Golden State for doing this because I think that as Anthony's going to step out here, Megan's going to step in. I have a ton of respect for Golden State for doing this because I think they just said like, hey, this is the player that probably has the most upside in the draft, and so we're going to go ahead and take her and see what happens. And they know they're probably not going to be great this year. They did not get the players they wanted in free agency, but congrats to them. We're going to go circle back to the Mystics now, not only because they're on the clock again at 6, because Meghan McPeak, the play-by-play voice of the Mystics, is with us here on the YouTube show.
You got both broadcasters today.
I did. Lucky me. Lucky me. I'm very excited. I mean, Christy was incredible. She said she had a good time, too, which is a mistake, because then we wind up inviting you back. That's how that works.
There you go.
So before we dive in with Megan, Kathy Engelbert is back at the podium, so we're going to learn the pick here, Megan.
All right.
With the 6th pick in the 2025 WNBA Draft, the Mystics select, Georgia Amoore. They go off the board a little bit compared to, I think, a lot of the mock drafts. You get the cutaway Russell Westbrook because Russ designed
That's a nice
Amoore's fit. Yeah, so I don't know how much you know about Amoore the player. What do we think of the fit, though?
The fit is really, really nice. I like it. I mean, selfishly, when I saw it earlier, I immediately went on the website to see if it was available. Unfortunately for me, it was not available.
Oh, come on, Russ.
I gotta somehow get in contact with Russ and find out if I can get the Amoore fit.
We gotta figure that out. We gotta see that on either a Mystics broadcast or a Wizards sideline next season.
I'm just saying, like,
tell Russ you'd wear it. You'll save it for next season. Wear it when they play the Nuggets.
Okay.
If he's going to be on the Nuggets next year. It feels like Russ has got a new team every year. So Georgia Amoore, just real quick biographically for those that don't know, Georgia Amoore, the pick here for the Mystics. So they I don't know if you saw the graphic they had a couple minutes ago where it's like 3 starters and then 2 grayed out TBD guards. Now we know Sonia Citron and Georgia Amoore, 5'6" guard out of Kentucky. She was previously at Virginia Tech. played there. A lot of people thought she was actually going to be in the draft last year. I thought she was someone the Mystics might target in the draft last year. Followed, though, her college coach who left Virginia Tech to Kentucky. Very good, close relationship there. Australian, so now we got the all-Aussie backcourt. Jay Melbourne, you can have that lineup combination. We're now Australia's favorite WNBA team. Love that. Good day.
Until we play New York.
Until we play New York, yeah, Cindy's there. And Seattle's got a nice history as well with Lauren Jackson.
It's true.
But for right now, we got a double Aussie backcourt potential. But I know you seem to like Sonia Citron, have a good feel for Sonia Citron. Why do you like that pick for the Mystics?
I just think you think of what they're trying to do and build to think of not just this season and next season, but you're thinking of sustainability.
Right.
And that's a big thing coming in that Jamila and Sydney spoke about from the roster construction standpoint, and then as well, too, from putting the team together on the floor and how they were going to play from the coaching standpoint. And I think when you look at Sonia, she just brings more than one factor. She's not just a shooter. She's not just a ball handler. She's not just a defender. And also you think of the fact that you had to somehow, in some way, fill the void that you have with Ariel Atkins in moving to get these picks to Chicago, 3-and-D type of player who really just over the course of her 7 years in Washington built a really strong resume and career. And I think right off the bat, you get that from Sonia with the way she can shoot the ball. She can attack off the dribble, but she also is such a fiery and fierce defender. She's not someone that you can just walk all over. So I think that's going to be a really great piece for them. And also you think of the fact you have a Brittany Sykes who is a long and lengthy defender.
Yeah.
Now you've got her a little bit more help as well, too, that when you made that move for Atkins, you didn't necessarily know what it would look like, how the pieces would look coming back with not knowing 100% who would be declaring for the draft this summer. Now you have an idea of what that could look like with Sykes and Citron potentially playing together. You've got a nice little defensive backcourt there.
For sure. And actually, as we were talking through it after the pick, this is your Ariel Atkins starter kit popped into my mind. And of course, part of this is timelines. Ariel deserves to go somewhere where she can be competing sooner than I think the Mystics are looking to, just because they're resetting a lot of things, new front office, new coaching staff, all that. That said, they finished 9th in the league last year. It's not like this team can't compete in the way the W is structured too. We're seeing if, especially a player like Amoore, playing point guard in the league as a rookie is tough, but she is an older player, and I wonder how much that played into it. It's something that we'll hear a little bit more about over the next few days as the draft picks are introduced and Jamila and Sydney talk a little bit more. But I totally agree on Citron and kind of where she fits, where you just go, it doesn't matter what else they do. And that's something that you and I are going to talk about here in a second, is kind of the larger context of this entire draft,
right,
and how this league is going to be reshaping itself over the next year. I don't care if she's the only player left and you rebuild with 11 new players. Sonia Citron will fit any roster based off her skill set. And not that I'm wishing for a total reset. And obviously the Mystics are going to have some players, the Aaliyah Edwards, et cetera, that are here no matter what. They've got them on rookie contracts, so all the vets will be changing around. But it doesn't matter who comes in, who you recruit in free agency, who you trade for. Sonia Citron is the type of player that fits with anybody. And I kind of wonder, even before Olivia Miles went back, before we knew who was going to be in this draft, with one of those two picks, I feel like Citron probably was someone they targeted all along.
Well, you also look at the fact there's a reason why Citron was on all of the mock drafts so high. She was always, when you look at the mock draft, she was always in the top 5 or 6. I don't recall seeing a mock draft in the last month and a half that had her lower than maybe a 6 or a 7. So that says a lot about who she is, I think, not just as a player, because you also have to keep in mind, yes, these are pro athletes now once they've been drafted, but you're also looking at the person. You're looking at the type of character that you're bringing in. And I know that's something that this front office is truly looking for and really takes to heart is, okay, yes, we want to make sure we get the right player that fits with the available players on the draft board, but we also want to make sure that we're putting the right people together with this roster, because as much as you think about the time you spend on the floor, 40 games, 40 minutes a day, that's a small portion of what these players truly spend time together. You think of the travel days, dinners, if your team's doing any fun activities for bonding, they spend so much time together in these 4 to 4.5 months that you have to also worry about the types of personalities you're bringing in.
Yep.
So I think that's another great aspect of why Citron was a focal point for this front office and for a lot of the mock drafts that we saw.
For just to keep everybody up to date here, Anissa Morrow, the 7th pick in the draft, she goes to Connecticut, the forward out of LSU. You're so right, which does beg the question, Megan. You know, we saw the tweets from Arike about accidentally rooting for Paige. Will Aaliyah Edwards out of UConn be able to welcome Sonia Citron on to her team? I mean, this is the UConn Notre Dame rivalry. I feel like this could get tenuous. Jamila, what are you doing?
That's going to be a great matchup because now you've got Paige and Arike, and then you've got Aaliyah and Sonia on one team.
But don't forget Big Mama Steph's there ready to go back up on that.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of moving parts here. And that matchup with the Mystics and the Wings as of late has, in the last couple of, I would say probably the last three seasons, has been a really fun matchup, a really fiery matchup, if you will. So now you add in more Irish, more Huskies. That, I mean, you get a Husky and an Irish walk into a bar, you know?
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
We know what happens there. It's the Irish, and they're in a bar. So I do think, though, back to out of our silly analogy land that I would 100% let us into. I think that I spent a lot of time talking about this with Christy earlier, and we've been just kicking it around, talking about it, too, as I point off camera to Anthony, who's sitting over there just smiling and wishing he was on camera still. I think the larger context of this draft is fascinating. Knowing they just put a graphic up on ESPN that's like, I think it's 105 of the 235 players in the league, or however, it's not 235 in the league.
156 now.
Yeah, it's
when you add in the
now.
fact they've got the Valkyries, it was
I don't know
144.
where the 235. Maybe I just saw the number wrong, but yeah, 156. But like 105 players or something like that are going to be free agents after this season. And to me, that leads to either one of two paths. You can do what Washington, and it looks like Connecticut, they've got 2 picks. Chicago, they've got 2 picks, plus they had the 2 last year, where it's like we can build a base of young players that can be attractive to those free agents. Or you have teams that are, on some level, recreating what the Miami Heat did back in the day, where it's like we're going to completely clear the decks, and we're going to have no one on our roster. The Aces, I think, probably going to wind up falling into this category. Kate, one of their draft picks from last year, gets gone to Golden State. And then they don't have a first-round pick this year. We know second-round picks are a 50-50 shot at best to make their teams. They're just going to be able to, like, Asia, you go pick who you want to play with and bring them on back here when this new CBA gets done. I just think that's fascinating. I'm curious your thoughts on how you're seeing kind of this larger, bigger picture of where the league is and how that affects tonight.
Well, I think also, too, there may be some wondering like how the CBA situation also could affect things, because that's kind of in like this limbo fluctuation type of situation. So there's so many factors going into this 2025 season. There's all this, you've got a new team, this influx of young talent, the vets that are still trying, to prove that they can play. And it's not even that they are trying to prove, they can play. Like the fact that there was a possibility of Diana Taurasi still playing this year. And it wasn't until, maybe 2.5 weeks ago that the official word came down from her. And then it's followed by also, too, Elena Deladon, who officially retires. Like, they were still trying to find ways to make themselves available to be on the floor because that's how much they love the game. So you add that in with the influx of all of this talent. You're adding a new team, and then you're going to be adding new teams down the road. So I think it's just putting this franchise, this league in a position for growth at the right time, and not like a quick punch growth. It's happening incrementally. And I think that's really what has been impressive and what they can do to try and sustain. But like, I'm really excited to see what the Mystics then do with what they've got, because you do have, as you mentioned, you do have some vets still around. You have some young talent in Edwards and Austin. Now you're adding some rookies. You think of, they got Sonia and they got Kiki Iriafen as well too. And you think of what those two type of bring. And I think of Kiki, like you look at what she was able to do at Stanford, such a great career at Stanford.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you are like, you know what, let's go one more time. And I'm going to go to USC. And if not for a horrible situation with the injury to Juju, maybe they are in a completely different situation in the in the NCAA tournament versus what they were in. And I'm really excited to see what she can bring to this roster, how she fits alongside an Aaliyah Edwards and a Shakira Austin, and what that can look like as well, too, because she's such a versatile type of big. What does that look like as they try to establish what Coach Johnson wants to play like, his play style, the types of things he wants to do on the floor? With so much young talent, you're surrounding, a Brittany Sykes as your leader. What does that look like?
I totally agree. I think it's the Mystics are maybe in the most sustainable position of any franchise in the entire sport from a player standpoint, because they actually, surely because of the numbers, like they have more players on rookie contracts as opposed to these other teams. And that could work out one of two ways. One, this could work magically, and these three bigs that people are like, how's the fit going to work? Like, it could work out because they are all versatile enough that it 1,000% could.
They are all very different play styles. So that's the one thing is, yes, they're all bigs, but they all play a very different style. And we got to see it a couple of times prior to Shakira's injury last year with what it could look like with Edwards and Austin playing off of each other and playing together. We know what it has looked like with Edwards and Dolson, because they can, Dolson can stretch the floor.
Right.
So now you get another young, talented type of big. What can that do, and how does that now adjust? But also, too, you now have more bigs on your roster. So when injuries happened last season, and it was happening to, your bigs, it was very tough, because then who do you play? Then you've got a situation where it's just Steph Dolson, unfortunately, because then Aaliyah Edwards went down. Yeah. So you've got to also think of
players. You're doing the whole deal.
You've also got to think of like, okay, we need to be, as you mentioned, in a position to sustain. And I think that's a lot of why they also made that move earlier today with Samuelson.
Yeah.
Which was very mindful. And I don't think people realize how mindful that was. As much as it's great to get a draft pick in the first round in the 2026 draft, you also were mindful of what this means for Samuelson. You put her in a position on a team that's vying for a championship, and she can help impact that in a win-now situation, but you also think about yourself for the future and trying to sustain what you're trying to build.
So that wraps around nicely to the point I was going to make is, if it doesn't work out and the fit is clunky, like, you now have some of the most valuable assets in the league. Because I don't think let's say it doesn't work out, and I'll just say Shakira, right? And Shakira winds up being the odd player out here. I don't think anyone's going to look at Shakira Austin and be like, oh, she's not a good player. She's like, oh, Washington doesn't have the need for her. And so they make a trade. They're going to get a ton of value, and she's on a old rookie contract, which is going to cost half of the new rookie contracts. And I think that you see, like, the value of players that can really help you win right now. I mean, I talked about this with Christy earlier. Congrats to Carly in so many ways. I mean, Carly had never signed before last year a full season contract in the WNBA. And that was her 14th, I believe, is the number, contract. I should have double-checked my notes before the show from Media Day last year. But 14th contract. In 1 year in Washington, she turned herself into someone that got flipped for a first-round pick. Like, that tells you how valuable some of these types of skill sets are, some of these players are, and what, Washington can provide. And again, you hope that the players work out, because especially once you get to, I love Shakira. Like, the person, I don't want to see her leave. But if she does, you know that there's going to be a massive return in something that's going to help the franchise in the long term. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how this business works. But I think either path, they've set themselves up with some flexibility here, no matter how the league turns. Mm-hmm. And we have no idea how this league is going to turn because of the CBA.
Right. And I think that's the interesting thing about what front offices, and not just in the W, but front offices in sports, period, have to balance. They have to do that dance of, we want to prepare ourselves for now and what we're trying to build, but as well, too, should what we're trying to build not work, we have a way to pivot, and pivot in a positive way, versus we do it for the win now, that's all we care about, it doesn't work out, and then we're sitting here like, oh, snap. How do we fix this? What do we do? And we can't get rid of contracts or players.
And you
There's
have
so
to
many things.
I don't know, let's call it a major deconstruction, which is, not to pick on Brad, but That's what the Wizards had to do, is they didn't give themselves a way out. The old regime, and Michael and Will got in here and were like, oh, God, this is going to be painful. And now Phoenix is in the same thing with the same guy, because that's why no one, and again, not trying to pick on Brad here, but that's why no one in the NBA, not even Steph Curry, has a no trade clause, because you want to, in this sport, give yourself the chance to pivot. And if you don't, it is a bad, bad situation.
It's not necessarily the situation any team would want to be in. And I think that's something you, as a general manager, have in the back of your mind when you're making these decisions, when you're thinking of the picks that you're going to look at, when you're thinking of the players, when you're thinking of putting your coaching staff together. Because the synergy, I go back to the press conference when the Mystics introduced
who hosted that thing, by the way?
I don't know, some girl named Megan. When the introduction happened, that was the constant thing I kept hearing. And it was also something that you heard from Will Dawkins and Michael Winger. So it's clear of what, with Michael Winger being the overseer and president of Monumental Basketball, you can see the synergy. It's not just on one side. It's happening on both, because you are trying to sustain something, to not just build a winning culture. You're trying to also build something that people want to come watch, fans want to be part of, player free agency want to be part of, draftees in the future are like, I want to get drafted to Washington. And so you think of that. Like, I go back, and I know we're talking Mystics, but saying that, I go back to the NBA draft. Alex Sarr, number 2 pick for the Wizards, said, I want to play in Washington. Yep. So now what you're seeing on the Mystics side is something similar in having players say, I want to play for Sidney Johnson, and I want my boss to be Jamila Wideman. Like, that's what you're trying to build. And I think this is where it starts, obviously, tonight with this being their first official draft. And I'm excited to see what they do with these moves and these picks, and how they can try to then get ready for the season and then see where they go as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think it shows the 2 top picks they had. By the way, Sanaya Rivers was the last pick to Connecticut. Sparks are the 9th pick in the draft, their first, being announced right now. Sarah Ashley Barker, the 6-foot guard out of Alabama that Maryland fans are quite familiar with, because she went bananas in that game where they lost to Maryland.
Imagine if she ended up here. Could Maryland fans cheer for her? Because Maryland fans love their Mystics.
Yes, this is 100% true. And, I will see, because Cheyenne Sellers was projected on a lot of those mocks to go 6th, and then they went with a former Hokie in George Amoore. So we're going to test Terps. You still keep rooting for them Mystics, and we'll see where Sellers comes off the board here. I'm sure fairly shortly. A terrific player with a lot of upside, but also we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Just as a quick aside on Sellers, like, really tough, because if I'm a team, I want to take a look at the medical as much as I can. And because there just isn't a lot of time before the WNBA draft, I do wonder if that winds up, being what makes her quote unquote fall, to the extent that she's falling. Like, I mean, this is the area of the draft where you had some players that were 6 in one mock and 16 in another. So she's not falling per se, but I'm sure that she'll use it as motivation, and she'll be just fine as a pro, because she's a heck of a player. What were we talking about before that? This is what happened. This is hour number 4 that we've been doing today. I did a live stream at 11 a.m. this morning, too.
Oh, wow.
So I've been talking way too much into microphones today. Nobody wants to hear from me anymore. We were talking before that about
just building sustainability.
Yeah, and the kind of monumental basketball way about it. I thought it was interesting today in the exit interviews, Malcolm Brogdon. His quote is one of the few quotes I saw from the exit interviews today, just because of my head being spinning over here. But he talked about how he's like, you know what, I can see the plan. And, like, I've been a bunch of other places that are rebuilding, and I don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that you have a guy who's won like he's won and been in the places he's been, to be like, oh, I see the plan. I think that speaks very well to what they're doing on the Wizards side of it, and I think that you can very much see a plan coming together. Oh, this is what I was about to say. The over-indexing, to use Michael's terminology, on the people. Like, you don't go to Stanford and play and get recruited by Tara Vanderveer if you're not an A-plus person. And that's who Kiki Iriafen was someone who went to Stanford, obviously, then goes to Lindsay Gottlieb at USC, who suffers no fools either. And I mean that in a good way. Like she cares about her player.
She's a no-nonsense type of coach.
Yeah, and if you don't handle your business, do things the right way, you're not going to play for her.
Yeah.
And
she'll be your biggest cheerleader, but she'll also be your biggest critic when you do something wrong. But she'll do it in a way that teaches you.
Yeah.
And that is what you want from players, is that can I critique you? Can I be critical with you? Can I hold you accountable? When you have players who are high character enough type people that you can be held accountable and you can look them in the eye and tell them, you know, you did A, B, and C wrong, but here's how we can correct it. And they can receive that in a positive way and understand that it's not coming from a negative place. That's the type of people I think that they look for and that they want, because you look at like the abundance of youth that this team could potentially have. They're going to be a very young team. And the toughest thing to do, and I mean, you guys saw it with the Wizards, is you have to let rookies, if you're going to play rookies an abundance of minutes, you have to understand that mistakes are going to be made.
Yeah.
However, it's how they're making the mistakes. Are they making the mistakes because they're trying to make the right play? They're trying to make that extra pass that you've talked about and worked through in practice. They're trying to make that aggressive attack to the paint, because when we get paint attacks, it draws the defense, and then we get our kick-out threes that we want to get, and we want to move the ball around. Or are they making mistakes because they want to be the one to take the last shot, or they want to be the one that makes the flashy pass? Like, why are the mistakes being made? And are they correctable, and are they for the right reasons? Those are the type of mistakes coaches can live with and live for, because it means we're trying to do the right things. We're trying to build the right way.
Yeah.
And eventually those mistakes get fewer and fewer and fewer, and all of a sudden those mistakes no longer happen. And that's where you start to see these success pieces come together. So I think that's going to be, for me at least, that's going to be the fun thing this season, is watching Sydney in his first season as the head coach. First of all, put a system in place, not just offensively, but he's a very defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
Said that in his presser, and I'm very excited about that, because I was a very defensive-minded player. So I'm excited to, like, that's probably going to be the one thing I'm going to have.
That doesn't
like,
surprise me. The
eyes
Meghan
in,
McPeak scouting report, tenacious defender. That definitely was the first line.
locked in during training camp. Like, okay, what are we doing here? And I'll be asking Christy questions, because Christy makes so many notes that it's like when I don't see something or know exactly what they're doing, my first thing is, all right, I'm going to ask coach.
Yeah.
And luckily I have a really great coach beside me. So that's, I think, what's going to be very fun about this season is young. Yes. You can't escape that. But I think they're going to put the right system in place. They're going to put the players in the right position to be able to succeed. And I think that's all you can ask for as a player when you come to a situation, especially as a rookie.
Yeah.
This is going to be new for them.
And
So,
this
like,
league
how are you
happens
going to help me
fast.
succeed? Exactly. Like, training camp comes at you fast, preseason comes at you fast, and then all of a sudden it's July, and you're like, wait a minute, we're halfway through the season. Next thing you know, you blink, and it's September, and you got to get ready for the playoffs. So, like, all of this is going to come at them fast, and I'm so excited to see how they're going to handle it as players, as people, and then when day one in training camp, what they look like, and how this team looks at the end of the season after they've had the time to go through the growing pains that young players do.
Yeah, and especially we'll see, how much Georgia Amoore, the 6th pick, has the ball in her hands. We talk about like the trust and playing for these coaches that are creating quality people. Kenny Brooks, the coach at Virginia Tech, and then at Kentucky was based, like, the relationship he and Amoore have is very, very special. And so very, very cool to see that point guard is kind of the next leader of this franchise from the point guard spot, to the extent that your point guard is always going to be one of your leaders. So that they really hit the ball out of the park on all three of those picks, and as far as we know, in that category. The 10th pick is in. Yes, the 10th pick is in. 11 on the clock now. Asia Svika is what I'm going to go with, unless you have your Slovenians better than mine.
No, I think that's pretty good.
Okay, we're going to go with that. She's the second ever Slovenian drafted in the WNBA.
There you go.
6'4", played in Eurobasket last year. That's the end of my my file there. Chicago on the clock again at 11, and then Dallas with the last pick of the first round. We're going to stay on through the end of the first round here, wrap things up. Megan, if you got to run, totally understand. We'll make Haynie talk. But if you can stick with us, we'd love to have you through the end of the first round here. So I'm excited. Like, we have the press conference where we'll meet the draft picks coming up in a few days. Like, what do you want to know from these women as they get to town here? Like, what you have a question that you're ready to go with Sonia Citron, Kiki Iriafen, and
not yet.
Georgia Amoore?
Not yet. Well, I mean, for Kiki, probably would be, can I get your dress designer's
number?
number?
Yeah. Help a girl out.
I listen. They were all. You can't get mad at how all three draft picks were dressed. They all looked great. This year, the draft picks looked very, very nice. I loved Kiki's dress, though. I thought it was beautiful. Her mother looked beautiful as well too, and I think it was her sister that was also with her. All three of the dresses were fantastic. But yeah, I need to somehow get that leather skirt from Georgia
Amoore. Be like, hey, I know who your designer is.
Right.
I need yours info.
So fun story.
Okay.
But that would probably be my question for Kiki right now is
okay.
the fashion.
Yeah.
I'll think of more basketball-related questions before I actually have to ask them of them in a moment. But when we were in Denver with the Wizards, after post-game, leaving to head to the locker room to do locker room sound, Russ is walking down. He's got this nice leather jacket on. And I was like, ooh, I need that jacket. He was like, I got you. So, there you go.
Hey, you remember you said I got you on the jacket? Past that, I need the skirt.
Past that, I need the whole outfit now.
That Georgia had. I feel like what she was wearing looked great on the sideline. So I think we got to get that. We got to figure that out. And now that she's here, we know who to talk to.
We could be the same size. Just saying.
She is not on the taller side.
I am only 5'6".
No, I know. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Point guard size. Point guard size. I'm curious to hear, like, I got to figure out how to phrase the question. We can workshop this now.
Okay.
We talked about this a little bit with Christy. Kiki's career path is pretty interesting because she played with Cam at Stanford. So you have this, like, superstar.
You mean
big,
Cam Brink, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Cam Brink.
I want to make sure that I'm not just assuming that.
Yeah. No, she plays with Cam Brink at Stanford. And so you're playing, like, too big. That's where your offense is running, like, two superstar, high quality. Like, they could have been 2 and 3 in last year's draft.
Yep.
If Kiki came out last year. Instead, she obviously comes out this year as number 4 in this draft. But she then goes to USC and plays with a ball-dominant guard in Juju. Ball-dominant, again, sometimes that's a negative. Not Juju's case. Who else would you want to have it? She's incredible. And so I'm curious, like, the stylistic, like, basketball stylistic differences. What did she learn last year playing with Juju in a different system than she played in all those years under Tara next to Cam, where those two were more featured? Because it does feel like it is going to be more similar to what she had at Stanford with Aaliyah and Shakira. A lot of the offense could be running through the bigs here. The way the current roster sits, of course, again, that could change, and who knows how that changes in the future. But, talk about a player who's played very, very different styles of basketball. Like, I think that's pretty exciting. I would love to hear her talk about. She's also so smart. So, like, I'm sure she'll be able to verbalize this in a way that's both interesting and entertaining. But also then to watch it play out this year, I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think that could potentially be and play into why they wanted to take her at 4, is because she has played in 2 different styles now. You mentioned, obviously, 2 different head coaches. So you're going to have 2 different styles, especially when you think of the fact you went from playing in the Pac-12 to then the Big Ten, and it's a different style of play in the Big Ten versus the Pac-12, plus you have a different roster. But I think that also makes her potentially valuable because she knows how to play off of another big in that maybe high-low type of style. But then you add in the fact that you could potentially see her with Steph Dolson, who is a stretch 4-5. So that changes how that high-low kind of looks. And Dolson, the cool thing about that, I think, is the fact that you potentially have one of the best screeners in the W, period. I'm not just talking like today. I'm talking like the entirety of the history of the W. In my opinion, Steph Dolson is one of the best screeners as a big. And now you have that as a person to learn from. Not that Kiki is not a good screener. She's a good screener.
Yeah,
but
that was actually
to
something
learn,
Christy talked about was like
to learn the intricacies
Yeah.
of like how you set the angle and where a Slim wants the angle set to the way she attacks
Right.
versus where a Sonia may want it set versus where if they go into a pick and roll or a pick and pop situation with the bigs, because Steph can do that with her 3-point shooting. She could be a big to big screen and roll out. So like
Right.
learning the angles of the screens from Steph, because she just has done it at such an elite level and a high level for so long. And you think of the fact Steph also played in 3x3, that she also had that perspective too.
Yeah.
And just learning from her from that standpoint, like I ask Steph questions about screening, and I'm not playing anymore.
Yeah.
But I just like to learn from it because it's such an intricate skill, and I think it's a skill that is not taught like it used to be,
Yeah.
and it should be
and
because
so
of
much
how
of it too
many.
is like the
like you-
players have to pass that knowledge down.
Exactly. And that's why I think it should, and I'm not saying not all coaches aren't teaching it, but it
Yeah.
should be such an integral part, I think, of everyone learning it. Not just AAU and high school, but like college, because you need it at the NBA and the WNBA level because of the way they shoot the three. You need good screeners, and the way that both
And the higher,
leagues you
the higher
have
up you go,
attack.
the
Exactly.
details and the margins have to be that much finer.
Exactly. So that's why I think to be able to learn from a player like Steph Dolson with her wealth of experience in this league. She has seen this league in so many different iterations of it, in the different styles that every team has played. Like, first thing I want to do is if I'm Kiki is go in and just ask Steph a million questions.
Yeah, for sure. Haley Van Lith comes off the board at 11 to Chicago. Super emotional. Just she heard her name, hung her head. By the time she looked back up, she had tears in her eyes. Gives a big hug to mom and dad. Haley Van Lith, as they flashed her boyfriend, Orlando Magic guard Jalen Suggs, on the telecast as well.
If you have been living under a rock.
Yes, big proud smile on his face. So you got a new basketball power couple. Congrats to Haley Van Lith. What a rebound for her last year after the really just lackluster year, we'll call it. Subpar, that's probably a better word. Subpar year at LSU. I don't necessarily mean for her as a player. Her experience and what she
Correct.
went through, not great at LSU.
I'll be honest, I personally did not think she should have made that move.
To TCU?
No, to LSU.
LSU? Yeah. I mean, she had a good thing going at Louisville, and what she was able to do at TCU showed exactly who she is. That Big 12 Player of the Year. She's obviously got the 3x3 Olympic experience as well. So she is headed to Chicago, where she will reunite with Angel Reese, who she was with at LSU.
Correct.
And I think Angel's a part of why she wanted to go to LSU.
And you get to learn from arguably one of the best point guards
Yes.
in the history in Courtney Vandersloot. But like, I think doing the 3x3 this summer, then going into her final season at TCU,
Yeah.
I think that unlocked what was missing at LSU for her.
Yeah.
I think it reminded her like, oh, I'm that hooper. Like
Yeah.
I can. Who is that girl in the purple and gold? Like what
Yeah.
happened? That's not who I am. I
Yeah.
think that 3x3 experience reminded her like, nah, you can hoop. Like
Yeah.
get back out there and hoop, because TCU Haley Van Lith was Louisville Haley Van Lith
Right.
on a whole different level.
Yeah.
It was like everybody was like, oh, yep, she still got it.
For sure. So congrats to Haley Van Lith. First-round pick. Incredible job just to bounce back this year. And, of course, won that Olympic bronze medal in 3x3 over the summer with Team USA. So that means one more pick. We got a Dallas Wings sandwich here. They also have the 12th pick after having the first pick. And, of course, there's just 12 picks, even though there's 13 teams now because the Aces do not have their pick in the first round of this draft. I'm very, very curious to see how some of the mentoring goes this year. You talk about Slim with Sonia for the Mystics. Kiki with Steph Dolson is a great one as well. And when Christy was here earlier, she was talking about how she thinks that Iriafen's ability as a screener to read the game is like what makes her really, really special. Like on top of the obvious stuff, the skills, the pinch post stuff, where she's hitting Dirk Nowitzki 1-footed fadeaways. You're like, oh, that's neat. But
Okay.
her ability to just read the game on the fly, you add that with some extra nuance of like your screen angles and all that kind of stuff to begin with. like that could be a deadly combination. And then the question is, which guard is running that with her? And that still feels like the long-term project for the Mystics. I think Sonia Citron, great, again, complementary piece. You'll see if Georgia Amoore, what she can develop into as a pro. But it would also not be – I think this is another like weird thing about both the NBA and the WNBA draft, especially for folks that are way more focused on, say, the NFL draft, where it's like if you're in the first round of the NFL draft, you better be ready to start right away, and you better be a long-term starter. If Georgia Amoore is the 6th pick in this draft, turns into a consistent 6th player for the Washington Mystics for the next 8 years, that's a hit on that draft pick. It's not like – obviously at 3 and 4, you want bona fide starters, really high-level rotation players. At 6, if Georgia Amoore is not their starting point guard of the future, but is a reliable, excellent bench player, like that's a win with that pick. So I still think it's going to be interesting to see, especially with the 3 picks next year, not to mention what they can do in free agency, what the long-term plan is for Washington and their backcourt. But like we talked about with Citron earlier, like the fact that it doesn't matter who you pick, Citron can pair with that player, I think is a very exciting thing. And probably play some 3 as well. Like they can go big with the 3, Iriafen, Austin, or Dolson and Aaliyah on the floor. They could also go small with someone like Citron at the 3. So it's going to be fun to see what they do with Sydney Johnson this year in year 1. It's Isaiah James from North Carolina State comes off the board as the final pick of the first round.
It's especially because Sonia's a bigger guard.
Yeah,
for
she's
her
6'2",
size.
right?
Yeah, I was gonna say she's like 6'2", 6'3"-ish, depending on if she got shoes on or not.
Yeah, which is always my favorite. All of us out here in the world, we measure ourselves without shoes because that's what happens when we go to the doctor and they're like,
Correct.
take your shoes off, and then they put that thing down, and you're like, quit pushing my hair down and give me the extra half-inch hair.
Correct.
But in basketball, the measurements are in shoes, and the simple explanation is because you play basketball in shoes.
Yeah.
That's like the NBA's official explanation.
We're measuring your height for work.
Yep.
And when you work, you're wearing running shoes. So we're going to measure you with your shoes on.
But
and
they don't. That's the thing. They don't actually measure them with shoes on. They measure them without shoes on, and then they add 2 inches, and they say that's your height with shoes.
Well, some of them do wear their shoes.
At the combine, I think it's a shoes off plus 2 inches.
Well.
Now, maybe they do it differently like schools or whatever.
Yeah, they need to just do it with the shoes on. If you're going to add the height anyways, you might as well just let them wear their shoes. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
No, I'm very excited to see what they try to deploy from an offensive standpoint. And then as well, too, like as much as we've talked about the offense, like defensively, what this looks like as well, too, because, obviously you've got Slim in there. As
so many arms. If they go like the 3 bigs with Citron and Slim,
I'm so glad I'm
it's
not
just
a practice player.
Just arms everywhere.
So glad I'm not a practice player, because my
Wingspan
goodness,
somewhere. Jay Billis takes a shot.
It's like literally. I'm just thinking like you've got the length and the wingspan of Shakira Austin. You add in Slim. You can add in Aaliyah Edwards alongside. If you want to go with the big lineup and bring, Kiki in there as well, too, she's got a nice wingspan. And then, if you want to throw Sonia in there, like it's a very lengthy and versatile type of lineup you could have. And I think that's also kind of what they're looking for is not just, players who can complement one another, but also players who can be versatile in what they're trying to do on both ends of the floor. Because as much as Sydney wants to talk about, the defensive side of things, you also want to make sure that you've got players who can play on both sides of the floor, because you don't want to necessarily have, quote unquote, liability players who are great offensively, but then might not be able to do anything as much as you want them to on the defensive end, where you have to try and hide them. And then obviously that will be on an opposing team scouting report, go after so-and-so. But that also comes into play of the work you're going to put in the off season to get better at whatever, your weakness may be. So I think that is also something they look for is how can we find offensive versatile players, but also how can we find defensive versatile players, excuse me.
Yeah, and that's going to be, an ongoing process of not just identifying talent next year in the draft, identifying free agents, identifying trade targets potentially, but also the player development side. We've seen that with the Wizards. It's such a huge part of what they do. Alex Starr comes in, like in a lot of ways, especially for a rookie, defensive made, ready to go. but can we get him to be a shooter? Can we not? Can we get him to do more? Can we get Bub, locked in on the defensive end? Not because he lacked the effort, because at 19 years old, like, knowing how to defend in the NBA is hard.
Yeah.
Somehow Keyshawn George was pretty darn good at both as a rookie, especially for a late first-round pick, but refining those edges, making it so that he's got more to his offensive game. And so that's going to be the project for the Mystics. I think Iriafen is a really interesting one on that front. What can she do defensively to get started? But with players like Slim, players like Kira here, there is a little bit of a safety net underneath these rookies as they get started.
The wild thing is we haven't even talked about someone who they got in a trade last year in Sika Kone. She was a late excitement type of player for them last year when, you've got injuries and you only have whatever you have availability on your roster. And she got an abundance of minutes in probably, maybe like the last month of the season, maybe last 3 weeks. And my goodness, what a spark of fun and energy she was. And just the way she crashed the glass, just had a knack for the basketball. So, like, as much as we've talked about
Penny vibes.
Exactly. As much as we've talked about the draft picks and the vets that they have, like, it's also like, well, wait a minute. They still have Sika Kone, and she's young and impressionable, and what she can learn as well, too. And she made such great strides over the course of the last month of the season last year. So that's another fun piece that you have to add in. So I think in all honesty, Craig, like, the sky is the limit right now, and the trajectory for what they're trying to do, the only option right now is up, and that's a good thing rather than being like, well, what are we going to do now?
I still think in so many, like, it's so funny how the mirroring between the Wizards and the Mystics. Because I think if we're being honest, both teams are still looking for their A1 star. They're looking for, in the Mystics case, their Asia Wilson, their Breanna Stewart. And it's because there's like 6 of those players on the whole planet, and they're really, really hard to find. That's why, there's a lot of excitement about the potential, like, if Paige doesn't want to go to Dallas. Like, Bueckers has that kind of ceiling. Malonga, who just went to Seattle, like, she's probably got that kind of ceiling. But they've now got 3 picks next year in this draft, or in that draft. And again, they've made themselves such an appealing option because of everything you just talked about, that maybe next year in free agency, if one of the league's top stars decides they want somewhere else to go play, Washington is as appealing of a place to be as any. First round of the draft went like this. Paige Bueckers out of UConn goes to Dallas. Dominique Malonga, we just talked about, to Seattle with the second pick. The Mystics go Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen out of Notre Dame and USC with 3 and 4. Joist is what we're going to go with on the pronunciation. Again, I'm so sorry to her and all of Lithuania. Just. You got a last name?
Hold on. I need to see it again. We were talking about it in the
in the media room
when they said it, because Kathy, and then
Okay.
Ryan, it just came out like nothing. I know the first name is used. I have to hear the way that Andrea and Ryan said the last name, but they're both.
I trust Ryan Rucco implicitly.
It's not a J sound; it's a U sound for both. But the last name has a different sound to it.
Joist? Something like that. Okay. Just from Lithuania goes to Golden State. I'm more sorry than Megan is, because I butchered it worse. Georgia Amoore. She is, of course, out of Kentucky out of Virginia Tech to Kentucky, the Australian guard, coming to D.C. With the number 6 pick. And then the second half of the first round, Anissa Morrow and Sanaya Rivers to Connecticut. Sarah Ashley Barker to the Sparks. Aisha Shikva, the Slovenian, goes 10 to Chicago, followed by Haley Van Lith to Chicago as well. And then Isaiah James out of NC State. So NC State, they get 2. Sanaya Rivers went 8. So they get 2 in the first round. So congrats to that program. Of course, Sanaya started at USC under Don Staley before transferring up to Raleigh and North Carolina State. So that is the first round. That is going to conclude our show as well, unless the Aces make a pick in the next 10 seconds. Thanks so much, Megan, for joining us here. Haney, good work on the first half of the show. Anthony Haynie over there, everybody. All right, excellent job, Anthony Haynie. Ant and I will be back on the radio tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We will see you then. Thanks so much. And if you are watching us still on YouTube right now and you haven't hit subscribe yet, now's a good time. You're running out of show. So hit, whether it's at the Team 980 or at Hoffman W Sports, and we'll have more reaction tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and enjoy the rest of the draft.